Hey Cryptic Creatures, welcome back to the Crypt. Today we have a very, very special video, an interview with Goth YouTuber JESS King. JESS King started her YouTube channel 4 years ago and has since made a variety of series, such as the Goth Music Earworm series, You Choose Goth Reacts, the Black Goth Disability Diaries, Goth Buys Black, Black-Owned Business Haul, and many, many more. Make sure you subscribe to JESS King to stay up to date on all of her series. This interview was recorded over Zoom in July of 2021. Thank you so much to Jess for doing this interview. This is the second part of the interview, so if you didn't listen to the first part, you can find that in the link below or above. Make sure you listen to part 1 before listening to part 2. Speaking of associations with the goth community, in your first video you did mention that there's a stereotype that goths are depressed and that there's a lot of work going into breaking that stigma and saying that goths are happy and that goths can be cheerful. However, that does discredit or can create some sort of shame for people who do struggle with depression, mental health issues, trauma, and other circumstances that might be linked to depression. For people who are goth and or other alternative forms of expression that appeal to them. So you mentioned that being part of a community that includes art, music, style, and many other options to express yourself can help cope with like mental health struggles, trauma, and other circumstances. So personally, I relate to this as well because I struggle with depression, and I don't know if it was because I struggled with depression that I was drawn to goth and metal and these other sort of like darker genres and themes. But do you think that there's something about goth and alternative communities that tends to be attractive to people who experience mental health struggles and or trauma?
So I started with so. You should put this in here still because I hate that. I'm just gonna do a quick little caveat that I spend so much time editing out so's in my videos. You guys should just be thankful because I know I spend more than 20 minutes per video taking so out of my videos. I can already tell you what so looks like in the audio file. That's how often I take it off. So I hate that I started out like that. But to answer your question, I also have mental illnesses that I talk about in my disability diaries playlist that I go through as well. It's a huge chicken or egg thing, in my opinion, what comes first. But I also feel that you have to look at the history of some of this, and you have to look at the creators of each genre. But I also think that you have to look at our society too. I think that this question gets more into the heady spaces of what subculture and counterculture is compared to just the light and fluffy. Going back to the Twitch for a moment, unfortunately, there are a lot of white cisgender men that DJ that I like because they're good DJs, but because they're white, cisgender, and straight, and most of them are either married or they have a partner, they will usually say, if someone tries to be real in their chat while they're playing, no politics, no politics. We're focused on the music, no politics. And I hate it. And because counterculture is about bucking the system and it attracts people who are about speaking up regardless of results and not being afraid to be themselves, I want to take that energy that the culture is about and go back and clap back at them so bad. But I want to be kicked off your channel. And I like how they DJ, so I just kind of deal with it. But with that, I think you have to look at all those different avenues. Number one, we're fostering in the United States a society where we're just now, I think in the late 2000s, talking about mental health. I know as early as 2004 and 2005 in high school, when I was struggling without meds and stuff, there were barely any ads for antidepressants online. nothing about bipolar, which I have, or meds really, except for grandiose plans. And I hate that to this day because I never have grandiose plans. And a part of my self-help is working to build self-esteem. So I never thought that I was bipolar because I don't have those main qualities that they would push to say bipolar people were. So I think that number one, we are coming from a society where for mental health and knowing that our brain has an injury basically is hidden. Or if it's talked about, it's tried to toxic positivity away. Or we live in a healthcare system where we can't afford therapy. I know that I can't always afford to see my therapist on a regular basis, but I make it a point to see my psychiatrist because given the two, not getting off my meds is more important than a check-in. So that's why we're fostering a place where we have all these people who are going to be struggling with intense or different type of emotions than the neurotypical adjusted person is, and they don't have necessarily a professional outlet to go to. They don't have a representation of what is out there and that other people are experiencing it and that there are options of handling it. Then we move into the fact that goth is a subculture that does have those dark themes that the music talks about at times, or it talks about otherworldly experiences, or it's really experimental. So it has weird instruments or rhythms or beats or just pausing. So it's something that's unique. And so something dark or unique or creative is going to attract people who aren't typical. And in that, they could be drawn to this because it's a way that they feel resonance. So they feel heard, they feel seen, they feel validated, or a part of being into this or taking into the horror or the gothic novel that inspires these songs, that they say, oh, look, this is speaking for me, or this is my experience, or these people aren't afraid to hear this because they do say that they approach and they experience darkness and death head on and they don't run away from it. So I think that it's not necessarily the fact that it is what the mainstream media piled on us. I think it is a trifecta of how our society is set up and the poor healthcare system, what counterculture means, and the type of people that are creating this music, which tend to be people that are outcasts or people that are struggling that don't get the help they want. And so they're lashing out at an imperfect society. Plus, adding to the fact that this is an environment where people are not afraid to talk about gruesome things or dealing with death and all of that, where other subgenres, like if you look to popular music, most popular music doesn't talk about that. Though I think pop music in the 2010s has become a little bit more dark themed than in the past. So that's my take on why it attracts people with mental illness, such as myself and you. And at the same time, it's nice to point out that we're not always in crisis and that you don't have to always be in crisis to listen to this. And in fact, 90% of the time, I listen to my new wave synth pop and post-punk when I'm in a good mood or I'm feeling elated. I tend to listen to non-goth songs when I'm not feeling elated. So that's my take on it.
That totally makes sense and actually resonates with my own experience too. Because like when I was a kid and like dealing with stuff, I just felt like I couldn't relate or fit into most, I guess the mainstream or normal society. And then when I found like goth and metal, I found like a family, and it just felt like somewhere I could fit in. So that totally makes sense. And I was happy to see you talk about that too, actually. Speaking of stereotypes and goth representations in the media, the mainstream took the word goth, it seems like sometime in the 80s or 90s, and started using it as a blanket term for anyone who dresses in black, regardless of the type of music that they listen to. Mall goth, which used to be somewhat of an insult, has now been embraced and is usually more associated with nu metal and emo than goth music. And there seems to be a tension between people who use the term goth in a way to describe being into darker alternative styles and those who want to preserve the word for the culture surrounding the specific music genre. And this tension seems to pit people against each other when there are probably a lot of overlap across a variety of genres and people who enjoy multiple genres, both traditional goth and other darkly inclined alternative cultures. So has this tension affected you personally, or do you see this tension impacting the goth community on YouTube?
It doesn't impact me personally because, again, I have opted out with 90% of white media on YouTube when it comes to the goth section, or honestly in general, because I'm like, they're on the TV, they're in the movies, they're in my suburb that I live in, they're like everywhere. If I can just like decolonize a part, that'd be nice. So I use the internet to decolonize myself. So as I mentioned, for whatever reason, I love that most Black people don't fixate on that tension. So it doesn't really impact me because of people, when I have time, which has not been a lot lately, to watch, I can actually look at people who talk about other things and not the same rehashing over and over again. Honestly, for me, when it comes to this whole, oh, so what exactly is goth when it comes to the fashion and the mall goths and all of that? I didn't know that they were impacting new metal and all of that now. I honestly thought mall goth was for Baby Bat, and that's what it was. People shopped at Hot Topic because I like that that part is embraced. I like that they are no longer making fun of kids who go into Hot Topic and buy stuff, because it can be a bold move. And especially before we had the access to internet clothing like we do now, it was huge to start out that way. Like back in the day, I wanted to wear the whole trip dresses. I wanted to wear like the Renaissance-y kind of like velvety long bell sleeve outfits and stuff, but my parents would not let me wear that. Funny, they did let me wear those mini skirts, and I don't understand because like the dresses all were like floor length or they were more covered. So I don't know why they were like, here, you can wear this tight t-shirt with some plaid skirt, but we won't let you wear those other things. So I don't know where that came from. And I like that that part is not being stigmatized anymore, because it's a huge deal when you're a minor and you try and do that and you have to fight with your folks. That's a counterculture move to me. That is a subculture move. And just because it's not from the official goth brand of clothing doesn't make it any more punk to say, I'm going to dress this way at a store that maybe I never would have had access to any clothing if the store wasn't there in the first place. So when it comes to that tension, I'm still going to nowadays say it's not valid, because if you live in more rural aspects that are not in the city, the internet is behind if you're not in the city. So who knows? They might drive a while to go to their Hot Topic to do that. If not, who's to say that they can't go over there and wear what they want, as long as they're not misconstruing what they're wearing? And if they are misconstruing what they're wearing, if you can't convince them otherwise, just ignore them and go on with your life. One lesson that I've learned with my mental illnesses and working from that is to fixate less on what messed up and wrong things people are doing, and fixate more on where you are wanting to go and what you're wanting to do, and let those people be misguided, because it's not your job to rule everything, and it's not your job to be judge, jury, and executor. So that's how I feel about the whole headbutting with this. We're not judge, jury, and executor.
I love that. Speaking of authority, it seems that those with the most subscribers and followers do get to paint themselves as an authority within the Goth community. Do you have any concerns about the way that the Goth community is or isn't portrayed by the biggest, most mainstream YouTubers?
Yeah, I did take myself outside of it. The only times that I did put myself in it is when I was miraculously caught up with my backlog of videos that I didn't upload. And I miraculously was caught up with the people I subscribed to watch. I'm literally 3 months behind. I'm on videos that people released in April. So that's not me right now. But in the past, when I was caught up and I was bored because I couldn't find any melanated people that uploaded for the week, I would go look to see what the mainstream people were watching just to have content that was goth, just because I didn't want to have a day where I'm not immersed in it, just because it's part of who I am, what I like, what I'm into hearing about. And I don't watch movies and I don't watch that much TV like you. YouTube is kind of my TV, and the people that are content creators are the stations that I watch instead of the CW station or MTV or say Bravo or something like that. So for me, when it comes to major people representing the community and what other people think about that, I'm going to go into the whole how we talked about earlier in the interview that YouTube is flawed and how their system is messed up thing. If you look at the culture, the goth section of YouTube is niche. If you look at the people who make a lot of views, like Black Friday, I don't think that Black Friday has hit 1 million subscribers as of yet. And I know other people, maybe like Toxic Tears or I don't know, Angela Benedict. I don't think any of those people have hit 1 million subscribers. They might have had viral videos, but not at the level as, say, vloggers or gamers or reaction. People love reaction videos where they're reacting to music or media, etc. Those people will have millions of views, or people explain comics, but because it's hot right now. But you have to take that part into account of it first. And then, because it's niche, if you look at how many people view or comment on their posts, listen to what they're saying and what they are expressing in their reaction videos. Most of these people who are reacting are not goths. So because this is niche and it already started out small, these people that they're speaking to are outside of the community. So there's a different response, in my opinion, to talking to someone who's in the know versus someone that's not, someone that's inside of the culture or not. As I mentioned earlier in the interview, this top is kind of a katsu, and this is all like Japanese street fashion that I buy that's either in black or it's darkly inclined. This is more just black. It's not really a darkly inclined design, but because it's black, it's dark/gothic. And in the Japanese street fashion community, if they're doing their videos, a lot of times people comment they're in the same subculture. Now they get videos from people who are not into it, but the majority of people in there are into the subculture, whereas the goths don't have a lot of people that are engaging in it. So what do I care about having some person who wants to be an authority talk to the people who aren't in it? I don't care. If they want to pretend to be big and bad to people who aren't in the subculture, that's cool. You can put yourself as the it person. It's not going to impact me, and it's not going to impact how our culture is. If you're trying to be the it person in the community, I would even say, even if you are an elder goth, people are going to look past that, because a part of what stemming from punk means is that we're going to have a punk attitude. And being a punk attitude is questioning authority, looking at authority, dissecting authority, and either finding a way to work within that or just completely stepping away from that and creating our own rules. So it doesn't bother me because I'm divested. Most of those people are talking to people outside the subculture anyway. And if they aren't, I think that enough of us know to not really take their leadership that seriously.
I love it. Thank you. Yes, that's so true. The punk attitude. Absolutely. So we talked about your YouTube past and the wider community. Fast forward to today. So how is hosting your YouTube channel better, different, or more challenging than you thought it would be 4 years ago when you first started it?
Definitely was not what I thought it would be because I had no idea where I was trajectorying. When I first started, I knew I wanted to do goth, but I didn't know how I wanted to focus on it. That's why you'll see me talk about some random stuff I don't talk about anymore. Like, I knew I wanted to bring things to the forefront that were not discussed. But what things I wanted to bring to the forefront, I wasn't quite sure. I talked about being a goth in the South for a little bit because I am in Houston, I am in Texas. I ended up not really continuing with that just because, as I mentioned, the big hole that I found was the color of my skin, being melanated, and how that is. That was more important to me than what location I was in. I talked a little bit about being a loner goth and how while I am heavily inside the computer and tech and the internet, outside of it, I don't have a lot of in-person connections, or before Corona, I didn't really have a lot of people to go out with in the club. So I talked a little bit about being a loner at first, and then I just kind of stopped. People did engage with that and they did like that. But for whatever reason, I didn't feel like it was my story to get into detail about it and talk more about that. I talked a little bit about anime that was darkly inclined stuff, like talking about vampires or their rendition of Pet Shop of Horrors and stuff. I ended up stopping doing that, actually, to be honest, because of my disabilities. I have this thing called flicker vertigo where intense graphics, shaky movements, and flashing lights, or just really big computer animation can make me feel nauseous and dizzy and stuff. So that means I can't watch a lot of anime because anime is Japanese cartoons that are created to be extremely visually graphic and compelling. So, I started out with a few things that I still don't do anymore. And I found a little bit of what I had. I think that because of that, I didn't really quite know where I was going. And I think that's okay. I don't think that you have to start out your YouTube channel knowing where you're going to be 4 years later. It's always fun to look back on, but to be honest, the only thing that I really focus on is in the moment, how am I getting better? What am I going to edit? What am I doing now in the moment? I don't do a lot of reviewing the past, to be quite frank.
That's healthy. That's probably a healthier place to be in. Outlook is just like focusing on the present. So that's awesome. How has being a YouTuber affected your life over the last 4 years, or would you say it has affected your life?
It's affected my life in a few ways. My day-to-day has changed because I need to make time during the week to do my videos. It gives me a push to get dressed up where I wouldn't dress up, especially during Corona, those days where I would probably have the urge, but because it takes a lot of time, like this for me is a casual look. I have times where I put on a wig and then I put on more intense makeup than my little heart stuff in my lips and my cute thing, and I'll put on layers of clothes and I'll take photos and all this, and so it's a big detail to do all that. And I probably wouldn't do it as much if I didn't have a YouTube channel. I would probably dress up less throughout the year during Corona, and honestly before Corona I would probably dress up less too. I feel that it also has given me a schedule to kind of keep up with, because I have the recording time, I have the time where I upload and edit, and then I have the upload to YouTube and fixing. So it's given me that. I've gotten to know you and a whole lot of other people in the community that I never met before then. I got to learn a lot about the music and the culture that I love, because being a content creator that's focused on education or information passing on and curating topics within the culture to talk about, I'm always like on the look. And while I love learning music and stuff, I think before YouTube, I wasn't really like actively looking or actively listening for knowledge and artists that I want to listen and share about, or articles that I find online where I want to talk about on here. So I think it's made me become more engaged with the media that I have. So I'm actually actively listening and actively reading, where I probably wasn't that much before. It's given me the experience to learn how to grow. I didn't know how to do any of this lighting before. And I have never done a recorded Zoom before. This is my first time doing a recorded Zoom. And I never had a mic before this. I knew kind of how to use my phone, but I've used my phone in more ways. So it's made me a little bit more tech savvy, a little more editing savvy. And I just feel that on those aspects, my life has changed. On the day-to-day, when it comes to getting food, a job, etc., it has yet to change, but I am hoping through my consistency, there will be a day where I do get added revenue and I get compensated for all the work that I put in. I hope all the goths like you and me who put in the effort will get compensated for it, because that's another dividing topic in the community. There are some viewers in the goth community who think that everyone should be uploading their stuff for fun and for free always, and that they're a sellout or they're not authentic if they get paid for it. However, that is an old punk thing, because guess what? Even, I don't remember his last name, but the guy Johnny, who has the red hair in UK, who is the lead singer for Public Image Limited, Public Image Limited, PID, who was also part of another band. I think he was a part of like Clash or something like that. He makes money for his things. My babies, who are my musical dad's new order, make money for their music. The Human League makes money for touring. So to expect people to put in this money, effort, time, and education and not be compensated for as a backwards thinking of being afraid of capitalism, or thinking that capitalism creates people who are not authentic. I can tell you, if anyone's in front of the camera and they have some sort of backdrop, they have some sort of lighting situation going on, and this person's not just uploading 30 minutes of them talking, that's someone who's dedicated. And when you get to the point that you're going to actually get paid to do this, you have to be consistent, because you're not going to get paid just because you're authorized. You have to get paid for continuing to put out content. And most YouTubers, because again, being a YouTuber has changed me, because I said that I am being more conscious of my ingestion, right? So a part of my ingestion is looking to see these people who are in the millions and what are they doing to have YouTube as their full job. These people have to create merch. So you have to create merch. Plus you have to juggle your regular upload schedule. A lot of these people, before they had an editor, because most of them do pay for an editor, I hope to eventually be able to pay for an editor, because I hate editing. I love making the videos, but I hate editing. These people haven't juggled before they had that paid editing their videos, plus managing their store account. Plus these people, actually, most of these people that make the money on YouTube have 2 or 3 accounts that they're uploading at the same time. So yes, they're getting help, but no one's creating that content except for them. So all the other hope of editing, uploading, and publishing will not be anywhere if they're putting in there. So people that get paid to do this often are doing twice the work as people who don't. And if they're not, they're still putting in the same work as the other people. So this whole, where do you see yourself? And oh no, Justin King's talking about money is kind of an unfortunate perspective that I think is ignorant that the people that watch it think. So has it changed my life on the job or looking for a job and my day to day on that aspect? No, but it's changed my life in different ways already.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. And I agree, people should be compensated for their work because it is a lot of work. It really is. So finally, thank you. This is a great interview, and I appreciate like all of your real answers and very thorough answers. So we are to the last question. So do you have do you have any advice for people out there who want to join the Goth community on YouTube, but they are afraid to?
This is the first thought that came into my mind was don't join YouTube. And I'll explain why, because you can probably, if you're watching this, you're like, what the hell? Why would you say that? I'm saying that because if you're nervous about it, Goth Twitch is the place to be. As I told you, they are very fluid on what's in there. They would play something, like Johnny Cash on a thing, and they played a few like country songs, older country songs that are more bluegrass inspired and less the Nashville sound, which is a thing. It's not the city, but the records that were recorded in Nashville had a certain more popularized guitar and other genres outside of country blending in with it, and it made it what most people think of now, kind of like how Garth Brooks is very Nashville, whereas as we said that the Johnny Cash is a little more bluegrass and a little bit more of the original version of what country was. And if you brought Johnny Cash here, I know especially that one person I mentioned who loves to point out what is not God forgiving here and say Johnny Cash is not God, blah, 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 blah. So if you're nervous, Goth Twitch has a lot more leniency and less gatekeeping and less specific. Oh, I'm just trying to educate you. So that's why I was like, don't join YouTube. Build your confidence on Twitch, because Twitch is amazing. And like I said, there are a ton of people outside of 5 to 7 a.m. But outside of that 2 or 3 hour break, there's a ton of people always streaming. So you get to switch between different ones if you're bored or they're not playing your favorite song or something. And it's a way to engage in the chat where people will recognize you, etc. I can be gone from Twitch a whole week, and I come in 2 weeks later and people in those chats of the DJs that I consistently go to will be like, hi, they recognize me, they remember me. And so they are a great community. YouTube is not bad, but YouTube, especially if you want to start your own channel, you have to manage your expectations and you have to manage your emotions, because even the people that get millions of subscribers will have people hate on you. Some of these people even have board threads, or I forget what they used to be called, but threads of websites where people are posting about what they think about this person and how inauthentic they are and blah, blah, blah. So it takes guts to be on YouTube, just because, like I said, not everyone is mean, but there's enough mean people that you won't notice. And there's really not that on Twitch. And I've been on Twitch for a year now, ever since the pandemic started. But I don't think there's anything wrong with building up and then eventually going to YouTube. Just know that you might get someone trying to bully you. You might get someone trying to call you out incorrectly. You might get someone who questions you and questions your experience, your validity, etc. and just not let those people pull you down. Don't let it happen. And even when it comes to being a YouTuber, I'm just going to quickly say this, even though you didn't ask. I want to put in that you have to understand, study your niche, study what the main people in the niche that you're going to do is. Stick to your niche. Don't be all over the place and post every single little thing you're excited about. That is for your social medias like Facebook and Instagram, etc. But YouTube, if you want to be successful and you want to make this a part-time gig, or you want to get some sort of level of visibility on the site, or you want to help this build a social media, I guess, platform for yourself, you have to make it very specified. And you have to, within that, do your research. Because like I said, if you look at the people that are doing reactions to movies, etc., they'll have a few people that have 1 million people. Look at the people with 1 million subscribers and see what exactly they're doing, and then compare that to your niche. Because as I mentioned earlier, the top people that do goth are not making 1 million subscribers. So if you know that and you get upset because you're at 50, you have to temper it. You're at 50 because your niche is not something that the internet is valuing as much. So you have to think about that before you create your YouTube. Do I want to make something that is more something that everyone is going to watch? Or am I wanting to do this to shed light to something that I'm really very vocal and very adamant about? And then you have to be consistent. There are so many people that I see that get disheartened because they're consistently putting out videos and their videos are low turnaround or not a lot of comments or no comments or whatever. I have to tell them, like, y'all, look at the major YouTubers. Someone that I have 1 million views on that I follow, her name's like Colleen Ballinger, Miranda Sings. She got millions of views on her video when she announced she was pregnant. The next few videos where she was just following her kid and her son was only thousands. So if that's what the big people are doing, tamper that with you and know that you're going to be putting out videos where some people just aren't going to watch. And it doesn't mean that it was a bad video. It just means it didn't reach people because it's a niche thing. I know one person I talked to that was also Black. It was a guy and he was starting out. He was newer to YouTube creating than I was. And that was back when I had more time to watch stuff. He did a combination of being a furry and a DJ and being goth. And he told me, yeah, my goth videos aren't doing that well. I don't know what's going on. I was like, it's because goth is a niche genre on YouTube. It has nothing to do with your quality. Hell, he had a green screen and I've never played with green screen before. So he's more tech savvy than I am, even though I've been doing this longer. And I was like, you just have to make a choice. And I think that he stopped coming up in my channel because he decided that he wanted to do what most people want to do. And he went on to the furry thing because the furry gave him more views. So you got to pick what you want to do. And for me, I am committed to being the slow and steady turtle. And I know that getting to being monetized and making some sort of money on what I'm doing is going to be a long journey, but I'm here committed to it as the numbers go up and go down. So that's my take on, if you're nervous and you want to start, where you should go.
I love it. That's like really good advice, actually. And I asked this question to, so I've only interviewed 3 people so far, but I ask it to everyone. And it's awesome hearing like the different responses and how helpful that is, because it's so true. Like you have to have realistic expectations coming into this, being a YouTuber. And I think that's something that isn't said enough. So thank you for saying that, because it's so true. And thank you for doing this interview. Truly, it's been awesome. It's been wonderful getting to know you. And I really appreciate your time in the conversation.
Yes, well, thank you for setting this up and offering this opportunity for us to actually meet. And you've only done this 3 times. I think you're a very good conversational interviewer.
Oh,
I
thank
wouldn't be
you.
able to tell that this is something that you haven't done a lot.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot. And hopefully we could do it again in the future.
Yes, I'm always up for collaborating in the future. Well, thank you guys so much.
Thank you. See you all later.
If you are still with us, thank you for listening to this interview. If you haven't already, please subscribe to Jess's channel, and you can watch a collab that we did over on her channel as well. All links will be in the description below. Remember to take care of yourselves because it is the most important thing. See you in the next video.